Welcome to Conspiracist.
Great to be here.
Today we're diving into a hypothesis that, it definitely raises some eyebrows. It's the idea that governments, maybe worldwide, are intentionally hiding evidence.
Evidence that suggests our reality isn't, well, real in the way we think it is, that it might be a computer simulation.
Exactly. And look, we know this sounds pretty out there, but our goal here, our mission in this deep dive, isn't sensationalism.
No, not at all.
We want to take a really professional, objective look at the claims, evaluate the arguments, the reasoning that people put forward to support this idea of a cover-up.
It's a fascinating proposition, and it immediately brings up some big questions like why? Why would any government want to hide something so fundamental?
That's the first big piece, isn't it? The motive.
And then what? What kind of evidence are we even talking about? What could possibly be concealed? So let's maybe start with the why. What are the potential motivations?
Right. A major theme that comes up is the potential for massive societal upheaval. Think about it. If it suddenly became common knowledge, proven knowledge, that we're living in a simulation.
The philosophical impact alone would be huge. But beyond that,
you have the potential for real instability. We see this explored in fiction sometimes, right? The idea that blurring the line between what's real and what's, simulated could just shatter our existing frameworks.
There's talk in some of the source discussions about ideological imperialism. If the simulation has creators or operators,
right,
do they have their own agenda? Is it built into the code? If people suddenly knew that, it could undermine, everything. Social structures, political systems, even deeply held religious beliefs.
So governments might see it as almost a necessary evil to maintain control, prevent mass panic, stop the erosion of the power structures that currently exist.
It's certainly a plausible hypothetical motive from that perspective. Control and stability in the face of something reality-shattering.
Okay, so that addresses the potential why. Now, the what. What kind of evidence are proponents saying is being hidden? A common one, you see it pop up in online discussions a lot, is these anomalies, these glitches in the matrix.
Ah, yes, the glitches. These are usually anecdotal reports, right? Things like extreme déjà vu, objects disappearing or appearing, seemingly impossible coincidences.
Things that just don't quite fit our normal understanding of physics or probabilities.
Exactly. And the argument from the simulation perspective is, if reality is code, maybe there are bugs, occasional errors.
And from the cover-up angle?
From the cover-up angle, the idea would be that governments actively try to debunk these stories, explain them away with mundane reasons.
To prevent people from even considering the simulation explanation.
Right. Keep the public focused on conventional explanations.
It's tricky, though, because these glitches are almost always subjective, personal experiences. Hard to verify empirically.
Very much so. That's a key limitation. But are there other, maybe more scientific lines of inquiry that proponents point to? Things governments might theoretically want to suppress?
That's a good question. What about actual scientific research?
Well, yes. Some theoretical physics work touches on ideas that could be interpreted as consistent with a simulation. For instance, you have physicist Michael Vopson's work on information dynamics.
Infodynamics.
He proposed something called the second law of infodynamics, suggesting that information entropy, basically, a measure of disorder in information in the universe, might tend to stay constant or even decrease over time.
Which is unusual. Usually entropy increases, right? Disorder tends to grow.
Correct. In physical systems, the second law of thermodynamics points towards increasing entropy. Vopson's idea hints that information might behave differently, perhaps more like data being compressed or optimized in a digital system.
Interesting. So like the universe is trying to save on hard drive space.
That's one way to think about it, metaphorically speaking. It's highly speculative science, of course.
Sure.
But if research like that gains significant traction, provided strong supporting evidence, you could see how governments, if they were aware and if they feared the implications, might want to control how that information is released or interpreted.
Okay, so that's one potential area. What else? I remember reading about ideas related to the structure of space-time itself.
You're likely thinking about the work by researchers like Bean, Devuti, and Savage. They explored the possibility of observable effects if space-time isn't continuous.
Meaning not smooth, but like pixelated.
Essentially, yes. If the universe is a simulation running on finite resources, maybe space and time are made of discrete units, like pixels on a screen or steps in a calculation, a fundamental resolution to reality.
And could we detect that?
Theoretically, maybe. The argument is that this underlying grid structure, this discretization, could lead to subtle, observable effects. For example, maybe ultra-high energy cosmic rays wouldn't travel uniformly in all directions. Their paths might show slight preferences related to this grid.
Anisotropies, right.
Exactly, anisotropies. If such patterns were detected and couldn't be explained by other known physics, well, it could be interpreted as evidence supporting a simulation model.
And again, the hypothetical cover-up would involve downplaying or discrediting such findings.
That would be the conspiratorial interpretation, yes. Redirecting research, controlling funding, offering alternative explanations, ways to prevent the S word from gaining scientific legitimacy.
It seems like a lot of this relies on the simulation having limitations, leaving clues, these artifacts we could potentially find.
That's a crucial assumption in many of these arguments, that the simulation isn't perfect or that its underlying structure is detectable.
But we should probably address the elephant in the room. There are some pretty strong arguments against the simulation hypothesis itself, aren't there? Which kind of undermines the whole idea of needing a cover-up in the first place.
Absolutely. That's critical context. Many scientists and philosophers are deeply skeptical of the simulation hypothesis for fundamental reasons.
Like what?
Well, one major critique, often associated with physicist Sabine Hossenfelder, is that it's not really a scientific hypothesis because it might not be falsifiable. How could you definitively prove we're not in a simulation?
Right. If the simulators are advanced enough, they could presumably hide any evidence or just patch the glitches we find.
Precisely. It risks becoming more philosophy than testable science. Hossenfelder also argues that just saying a programmer did it doesn't actually explain the laws of physics we observe.
It just pushes the question back a step. Who programmed the programmer? What are the laws of their universe?
Exactly. It doesn't solve the fundamental mystery of existence, it just relocates it. She also points out what she calls the trivial interpretation, which is that, well, a current scientific theory has already described the universe as processing information according to laws. We model reality using computation. So calling it a simulation might just be a semantic game. It doesn't add new explanatory power if it just means reality follows computable laws.
So it's potentially tautological, meaningless.
In that interpretation, yes. It doesn't offer a deeper insight.
What about the complexity argument? I think I've heard that mentioned.
Yes, that's another significant point raised by people like Sean Carroll. He essentially questions whether the laws of physics, as we understand them with their weird quantum behavior, layers of complexity, seemingly arbitrary constants, actually look like something that would be efficiently programmed.
You mean, why would a simulator make it so messy or intricate? Wouldn't they aim for elegance or simplicity in the underlying code?
That's the intuition. Our physics seems to have a lot of, quote, hidden structure that isn't immediately obvious or necessary for the kind of macroscopic reality we experience day to day. Does that feel like optimized code? Or does it feel like something more fundamental?
That's a fair question. If you were designing a universe simulation, would you really bother with all the complexities of quantum field theory unless absolutely necessary?
Maybe not. And then there's the sheer practical challenge. The computational resources needed.
The processing power issue.
Right. Simulating our universe, down to the quantum level, particle by particle, across billions of light years, the amount of computing power required is just staggering, far beyond anything we can currently conceive of.
Proponents might say, well, a future post-human civilization could have that power.
They do. But it remains a huge speculative leap based on projecting technological progress infinitely forward. It's a significant feasibility hurdle right now.
Okay, so we have major questions about the simulation hypothesis itself: falsifiability, explanatory power, complexity, feasibility. Given all that skepticism, what about the specific claim of a government conspiracy to hide evidence? What are the logical problems there?
Well, the most immediate one is just the scale. Think about coordinating a secret like this.
It would have to be global, right?
Almost certainly. It would involve multiple governments, competing nations, countless scientists, research institutions, maybe tech companies. Over potentially decades, maybe longer.
Keeping anything secret on that scale seems improbable, especially today with information flowing so freely. Leaks happen. Whistleblowers exist.
Exactly. The logistical challenge of maintaining such a vast, complex, and potentially world-altering secret without any credible leaks or verifiable evidence emerging over all this time, it stretches credulity for many people.
It feels like Occam's razor might apply. The simpler explanation is often
That there isn't a massive, perfectly executed global conspiracy, perhaps because there isn't concrete evidence of a simulation to cover up in the first place.
And that ties into another point, the lack of actual concrete evidence for the cover-up itself.
Precisely. We have the anecdotal glitches, we have speculative physics, but the sources we've looked at don't really present verifiable proof of governments actively suppressing specific data or silencing researchers working on simulation-related ideas.
The scientific debates seem to happen out in the open, even if they're on the fringes sometimes.
Yes, in journals, conferences, online forums. It's discussed. It's not forbidden knowledge in the way a true cover-up might imply.
So it seems a lot of the evidence for the cover-up is really just interpreting things through the lens of the conspiracy. Seeing a debunked glitch not as simply debunked, but as part of the suppression effort.
That's a common pattern in conspiratorial thinking, interpreting absence of evidence or counter-evidence as part of the conspiracy. And we have to remember, as even commenters in places discussing glitches point out, many strange occurrences do have mundane explanations.
Right. Eyewitness misperception, cognitive biases, memory errors, coincidences, or just incomplete information about a normal event.
Attributing those directly to a simulation and then adding another layer of belief in a government cover-up requires stacking assumptions without strong, independent evidence for each layer.
So recapping that part, the simulation idea itself is debated, and the logistics and lack of evidence for cover-up make that specific claim highly challenging.
It seems that way based on the common arguments and critiques.
But let's just speculate for a moment. If it were true, if we lived in a simulation A&D governments knew and were hiding it, what would the philosophical implications of that be?
Oh, profound. Utterly profound. It would force a reevaluation of everything. What is reality? Is it real if it's simulated? What does that mean for consciousness? Is our consciousness real or part of the simulation?
And free will. Do we have it? Or are we just following programming?
That becomes a central question. Are we autonomous beings, or are our choices determined or heavily influenced by the simulation's parameters or its operators?
It also raises huge ethical questions, doesn't it? Living in an artificial world where the fundamental truth about our existence is deliberately kept from us.
Yes. The ethics of deception on such a cosmic scale would be immense. What right would anyone have to withhold that knowledge, and what would it do to societal trust?
Trust in institutions, in government, in science. It would likely evaporate overnight if such a deception were revealed. The consequences are almost impossible to fully grasp.
It would be arguably the most significant revelation in human history, changing our understanding of ourselves and our place in the cosmos completely.
So to kind of wrap up our discussion here, we've explored this idea of a government cover-up of simulation evidence. We looked at potential motives, like maintaining social order.
The types of supposed evidence, from glitches to theoretical physics.
But also the significant counter-arguments against the simulation hypothesis itself, and the really serious logical hurdles facing the idea of such a massive secret conspiracy.
Right. The lack of concrete evidence for a cover-up, combined with the scientific and philosophical debates around the core simulation idea, means it remains very much in the realm of speculation.
It's definitely a thought-provoking concept. It pushes us to question the nature of reality, which is always valuable.
Yeah.
But the leap to a deliberate global conspiracy that seems to require much stronger proof than is currently available.
It highlights that distinction between an intriguing imaginative hypothesis and something supported by verifiable evidence. The arguments for the cover-up seem to rest more on interpreting ambiguity than on solid facts.
A fascinating deep dive nonetheless. It certainly gives you a lot to think about regarding reality and information.
It certainly does. Always good to examine these ideas critically.
Thanks for listening to Conspiracist.